In the dead of night, under a sky pierced by stars, a lone figure stumbles through the Yemen desert, a silhouette against the vast, unforgiving sand. The spotlight from forward operating base Horizon's guard tower sweeps across the dunes, catching her in its beam. She's small, barely 5'3", her frame dwarfed by the weight of 2 burly Navy SEALs slung across her shoulders. Blood soaks her uniform, dripping into the sand with every labored step, but her eyes burn with a fire that refuses to flicker out. Her breaths are ragged, each one a battle against exhaustion, yet she moves forward, driven by something stronger than pain. This is Emma Larson, a communications specialist who just 48 hours ago was declared dead. An explosion in Sector Delta had ripped through a patrol, and her name was etched onto a condolence letter sent to her mother in a quiet Ohio town. Back home, her mother, a retired nurse who'd spent decades mending broken bodies, now clutches that letter, her hands trembling as she plans a funeral for a daughter she believes is gone. The base had already scheduled a memorial, the commanding officers signing off on the paperwork with heavy hearts. Yet here she is, defying death itself, carrying 2 wounded SEALs who were thought beyond saving. How could this be? How does a woman dismissed as too small for combat, too quiet for heroism, pull off the impossible? The answer lies in sleepless nights of secret training, in a promise made to a father who carried the scars of war, and in a single defiant choice that broke every rule in the book. Emma's story is one of courage that transcends size of determination, that shatters expectations, and it's a story that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about strength. As she nears the base, the guards in the tower freeze their radios, crackling with disbelief. It's Larson. One shouts, his voice breaking protocol in a mix of shock and awe. She's got the SEALs. The spotlight holds her in its grip, illuminating a scene no one could have imagined: a petite woman, her uniform torn and bloodied, carrying men twice her size through a desert that should have swallowed her whole. The base buzzes with confusion, the impossible unfolding before their eyes. Emma's journey to this moment began long before tonight. It started in a small Ohio town, where her father, a Vietnam veteran, taught her the weight of loyalty. Never leave a teammate behind, he'd said, his voice rough with the memory of battles fought and friends lost. Her mother, who'd patched up soldiers in her nursing days, gave her a necklace inscribed with the words, "Courage in silence," a reminder that strength doesn't always shout. Those lessons carved into Emma's heart now guide her steps through the sand, each one a testament to a promise kept. But how did she get here? How did a radio tech relegated to the shadows of a communications bunker end up defying death to save 2 elite soldiers? The mystery deepens with every step she takes toward Horizon Base. Her colleagues knew her as Tinkerbell, a nickname that stung with condescension, a label for someone they thought too frail for the front lines. Yet tonight, that same Tinkerbell is rewriting their assumptions, carrying the weight of lives on her shoulders and a secret she's kept for months. The guards scramble, their voices overlapping on the radio. "Get the medics!" Now one yells as the gate creaks open. Emma's legs tremble, but she doesn't falter. She thinks of her mother, alone in Ohio, weeping over a letter that tells a lie. She thinks of her father, whose stories of war taught her that courage isn't about size or rank. It's about doing what's right even when the world tells you it's impossible. The SEALs on her shoulders are heavy, their wounds critical, but Emma's will is heavier still. This is more than a rescue. It's a rebellion against doubt, a defiance of a system that underestimated her, and a tribute to the family that shaped her. As the medics rush toward her, Emma's story is just beginning to unfold, a tale of grit, sacrifice, and the kind of bravery that changes everything. Stick around for a journey that will inspire you, a story that proves No one is too small to make a difference. If this moves, you hit that like button and let us know you're with us. In the dim glow of forward operating base, Horizon's communications bunker, Emma Larson sits hunched over a bank of radios, their green screens casting flickering shadows across her face. At 24, she's a study in contrasts, petite, just 5'3" and 125 pounds, with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, her voice soft, but edged with a sharpness that betrays her mind's relentless drive. To her colleagues, she's Tinkerbell, a nickname that lands like a jab, mocking her small stature and relegating her to the background of this high-stakes outpost in Yemen's unforgiving desert. But Emma is no fairy tale. She's a communications specialist whose fluency in Arabic and Pashto lets her unravel enemy signals that others miss, a skill honed not just by training, but by a hunger to prove she's more than what they see. Emma hails from a small Ohio town where the lessons of her parents shaped her core. Her father, a Vietnam veteran, carried the weight of war in his eyes and taught her the unyielding value of loyalty. "Never leave a teammate behind," he'd say, his voice rough with memories of jungles and loss. Her mother, a retired nurse who spent decades stitching up soldiers and soothing their fears, gave Emma a necklace etched with courage and silence, a quiet mantra that pulses through her now as she decodes whispers of war in the bunker. These roots ground her, but they also fuel a wound that festers with every dismissal she faces at Horizon Base. The base itself is a fortress of tension carved into the Yemen desert, where the air hums with the distant echo of gunfire and the acrid scent of diesel. Horizon is a nerve center in the fight against insurgents, its soldiers living on the edge of danger, their days marked by the relentless rhythm of missions and briefings. Emma's world is the communications bunker, a cramped space filled with the static hum of radios and the weight of unseen battles. Here she monitors frequencies her ear, trained to catch the faintest anomaly signals that could mean life or death for the teams beyond the wire. Her knack for spotting patterns in enemy chatter has saved missions before, but her name rarely makes it into the after-action reports. To most, she's just the radio tech invisible until something breaks. That invisibility stings, and it's a wound that's been carved deeper over time. A year ago, Emma applied for advanced tactical training, eager to step beyond the bunker's walls. The rejection was swift and cutting. "You're too small, Larson. Stick to radios." The words echoed in the briefing room, where her suggestions are often met with polite nods or outright dismissal. Once during a planning session, she pointed out a flaw in a mission's communication plan, only to hear a lieutenant chuckle. "Let the big dogs handle the field, Tinkerbell." The room laughed, and Emma's cheeks burned, but she swallowed the hurt, clutching her mother's necklace and vowing to prove them wrong. What no one knows is that Emma has been preparing for more than they imagine. In the quiet hours after her shifts, when the desert heat lingers like a heavy hand, she pores over tactical manuals, medical texts, and maps of Yemen's terrain. She's taught herself to read the desert's contours, to stabilize a gunshot wound, to move silently through hostile ground. Why the question lingers like a shadow, unanswered but pressing. Is it her father's stories of lost comrades, her mother's tales of saving lives under pressure, or something deeper? A fire kindled by every rejection, every assumption that she's not enough. This morning, as dawn breaks over Horizon Base, Emma's focus sharpens on a faint signal cutting through the usual chatter. Her fingers dance across the radio controls, isolating a frequency that's not supposed to be active. It's in Pashto, a rapid exchange laced with coded phrases she's heard before, signs of an impending ambush in Sector Delta, where SEAL Team Alpha is set to deploy. Her heart races as she cross-references the signal's origin, mapping it to a rocky pass known for its deadly choke points. This isn't just chatter. It's a plan, and it's aimed at the SEALs. Emma gathers her notes, a meticulous breakdown of the signal's patterns, and heads to the briefing room. The air is thick with the scent of coffee and the weight of authority as Captain John Carter, a tall, no-nonsense officer, outlines the day's operations. His voice carries the confidence of someone who trusts the system, but Emma knows systems can fail. She raises her hand, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "Sir, I've intercepted enemy communications indicating an ambush in Sector Delta. The signals match known insurgent protocols, and they're targeting SEAL Team Alpha's route." Carter's eyes flick to her, a flicker of impatience crossing his face. "Larson, you're not intel. Stick to comms. We've got analysts for this." The dismissal lands like a slap, and the room shifts uncomfortably. Emma feels the weight of Tinkerbell hanging in the air, but she presses on her voice firmer. "Sir, these signals are on non-standard frequencies. Intel might not have caught them. I've triangulated the source, and it's urgent." Carter cuts her off his tone. "Final. We'll handle it through proper channels. Back to your station." As she returns to the bunker, Emma's mind races. The signals grow stronger, more coordinated, a ticking clock counting down to disaster. She thinks of her father, whose regret over a lost teammate haunted him until his final days. She thinks of her mother, who taught her that courage doesn't need a spotlight. The radio hums, and Emma knows she's hearing a truth no one else will acknowledge. Why has she spent months training beyond her role? Why has she pushed herself to learn what others said she couldn't? The answer is starting to take shape, and it's not in the bunker. It's out there in the desert where lives hang in the balance. Back in the communications bunker at Forward Operating Base Horizon, Emma Larson leans closer to the radio, her fingers trembling as she fine-tunes the frequency. The air is thick with the hum of equipment and the faint tang of desert dust that seeps through every crack. The signals she intercepted earlier have grown sharper, more urgent, a rapid-fire exchange in Pashto laced with phrases she's heard in enemy chatter before. Ambush. Sector Delta. Sunset. The words pulse like a heartbeat, each one tightening the knot in her stomach. She cross-references the coordinates on her hand-drawn map, her pencil marking a narrow pass where SEAL Team Alpha is set to deploy in just 3 hours. This isn't a hunch, it's a death trap, and Emma knows it. Her notes are meticulous, a tapestry of signal patterns, triangulation data, and tactical analysis that would impress any intelligence officer if they'd bother to look. Emma's not supposed to be doing this. Her job is to relay messages, not play analyst. But the radio tells a story no one else is hearing, and she can't unhear it. She thinks of her father, his weathered hands gripping a coffee mug as he told her about Vietnam, about a friend left behind in a jungle ambush because no one acted fast enough. That regret carved lines into his face, a weight he carried until his last breath. Emma clutches the necklace her mother gave her. The words, courage and silence, cool against her skin. She won't let that regret become hers. Steeling herself, Emma strides to the briefing room, her folder of analysis tucked under her arm like a shield. The room buzzes with the low murmur of officers, the air heavy with the scent of stale coffee and the weight of command. Captain John Carter stands at the front, his broad shoulders and clipped tone commanding attention as he reviews the day's operations. Major Helen Brooks, the base's intelligence officer, sits nearby, her sharp eyes scanning reports. Emma steps forward, her voice steady, but her heart pounding. "Sir, I've confirmed enemy communications planning an ambush in Sector Delta. The signals are on non-standard frequencies targeting SEAL Team Alpha's route at sunset. Here's the analysis." Carter's gaze flicks to her, his brow furrowing with impatience. "Larson, we've been over this. Your comm's not intel. Our analysts have cleared the sector. Brooks nods, her expression unreadable but dismissive. If there was a threat, our systems would have flagged it. Stick to your lane. The words cut deep, echoing the rejection she faced when she applied for tactical training. Too small, Larson. The room shifts, a few officers exchanging glances, and Emma feels the sting of Tinkerbell hanging in the air, unspoken but loud. She pushes back, her voice firmer. With respect, sir, ma'am, these signals are encrypted to avoid standard detection. I've tracked their patterns for weeks. The insurgents know Alpha's route, and they're setting up now. Carter's jaw tightens, and he gathers her notes with a curt nod. We'll pass it to Intel for review. Back to your post. The dismissal is final. A door slammed shut. Emma returns to the bunker, her mind racing. The radio crackles, the enemy signals growing stronger. A countdown to disaster she can't ignore. In the quiet of her station, Emma feels the weight of her father's stories pressing down. He'd told her about a night in Vietnam, the jungle swallowing his squad as an ambush hit. One man, Private Daniels, was wounded, left behind when orders came to retreat. Her father's voice broke every time he spoke of Daniels, the guilt a shadow that never left. I should have gone back, he'd said, eyes distant. Emma's fingers traced the necklace, her mother's words echoing. Courage doesn't always shout, Emma. Sometimes it's silent, but it's always strong. She knows what's at stake, lives not just orders. Desperate for guidance, Emma seeks out Sergeant Rosa Mendez, a former combat medic who's been her mentor in stolen moments of training. Mendez, with her weathered hands and steady gaze, listens as Emma pours out her fears in the dim light of the supply tent. Rosa, I know they're walking into a trap. I can't just sit here. Mendez's eyes soften, but her voice is firm. Emma, defying orders could end your career. You know that. But ignoring this, that could haunt you forever. I've seen what regret does to a soldier. She pauses, her own memories flickering. Once I stitched up a kid in the field because I ignored protocol. He's alive today because of it. You have to decide what you can live with. Emma nods, her resolve hardening. Mendez's words are a mirror to her father's regret, a warning and a challenge. She thinks of SEAL Team Alpha, Thupper Sergeant David Hayes, and Petty Officer Ethan Cole. Men she's never met, but whose voices she's heard over the radio, steady and professional, trusting the system to protect them. The system is failing them now, and Emma knows she can't stay silent. The radio crackles again, the enemy's chatter louder, more precise. Sunset is 3 hours away, and the window to act is closing. Back in the bunker, Emma stares at her equipment, the tools of her trade, now weapons in a fight no one authorized. Her father's regret, her mother's courage, Mendez's warning, they swirl in her mind, a storm of duty and defiance. She's been told her whole career to stay in her lane, to be the quiet tech who fixes radios, not the hero who saves lives. But the signals tell a different story, one where lives hang in the balance, and only she can hear the truth. Will she follow orders and let the system run its course, risking the SEALs' lives? Or will she risk everything, her career, her future, to do what's right? The choice looms as heavy as the desert heat, and Emma knows the answer will define her forever. In the dim light of the communications bunker at Forward Operating Base Horizon, Emma Larson stands surrounded by the hum of radios, her heart pounding like a drum against her ribs. The enemy signals she intercepted, those urgent whispers of an ambush in Sector Delta, echo in her mind, a relentless reminder that SEAL Team Alpha is walking into a trap. Sunset is just 2 hours away, and the system she trusted to protect them has failed. Captain Carter's dismissal, Major Brooks' cold rejection, and the weight of her father's regret all press down on her, a storm of duty and defiance. Emma clutches the necklace from her mother, its inscription, Courage in silence, a quiet call to action. She knows what she has to do, even if it means breaking every rule. Emma moves with purpose, her small frame darting between shelves in the supply tent. She gathers medical supplies, trauma bandages, IV fluids, painkillers, each item a testament to months of secret preparation. Her personal GPS, bought with her own money, is loaded with maps she's studied in stolen hours, marking trails and dry riverbeds invisible to standard military charts. A compact radio tuned to encrypted frequencies joins her kit along with a tactical harness modified for her size. Every piece of gear is a rebellion against the label Tinkerbell, a proof that she's more than a radio tech. As she packs, Sergeant Rosa Mendez's words ring in her ears. Do what's right, no matter the cost. Emma nods to herself, the decision made. She's going to save those SEALs. Orders be damned. Then a crackle from the radio stops her cold. A routine transmission from Base Command mentions a casualty report from Sector Delta's explosion 2 days ago. Her name is on it. Emma Larson killed in action. Her breath catches as she realizes the mistake. A patrol misreported her death after she was near the blast site, scouting a signal anomaly. The condolence letter is already on its way to her mother in Ohio, who's likely sitting by the kitchen table, her heart breaking over a lie. Emma's first instinct is to correct the report, to call her mother and ease her pain, but she hesitates. Reporting in would mean questions, delays orders, to stand down. The SEALs don't have time for that. With a heavy heart, she chooses silence, her focus locked on the mission ahead. Emma thinks of her father, his voice thick with emotion by the fireplace in their Ohio home, telling her about Private Daniels, a teammate left behind in a Vietnam ambush. I should have gone back, he'd said, his eyes glistening with regret that never faded. That memory fuels her now, a fire that burns brighter than fear. She won't let Thupper Sergeant David Hayes and Petty Officer Ethan Cole become someone else's regret. Her mother's necklace, cool against her chest, reminds her of the quiet strength that saved lives in hospital wards. You can be anything, her mother once said, if you're brave enough to try. Emma zips her pack, each item a defiance of fate, and heads for the base's eastern gate. It's midnight, the desert air sharp and cold when Emma approaches the checkpoint. Corporal Jenkins, a lanky guard with a skeptical squint, watches her approach. Her heart races, but her voice is steady, practiced. Evening, Jenkins. Got a maintenance pass to check the relay stations in Grid Square 7 Alpha. Comms are spotty, and we can't risk failures for tomorrow's ops. She flashes a genuine pass, one she's used before for legitimate repairs. But tonight it's a lie woven with technical jargon. Jenkins eyes her pack stuffed with medical gear and a GPS, not just tools, and hesitates. Kinda late for maintenance, Larson. Sure, this can't wait. Emma's mind races, but she keeps her tone professional. Negative. If comms go down during Alpha's mission, Command'll have my head. Jenkins grunts, waving her through, unaware she's stepping into forbidden territory. As the gate clanks shut behind her, Emma feels the weight of her choice. She's crossed a line out of the safety of orders and into the chaos of the Yemen desert. The stars above are her only guide, their light faint against the vast darkness. Her pack digs into her shoulders, but it's lighter than the burden of doing nothing. She thinks of her mother alone in Ohio, grieving a daughter who's still fighting. She thinks of her father, whose regret taught her that loyalty means action, not obedience. The desert stretches before her, a maze of dunes and rocky paths she's memorized in secret. Can she navigate it alone with 2 lives depending on her? The question hangs heavy, but Emma's steps are sure each one a promise to prove them all wrong. The Yemen desert stretches before Emma Larson, like a sea of shadows, its dunes swallowing the faint starlight above. Each step is a battle against the soft sand that clings to her boots, her pack heavy with medical supplies and the weight of a promise. She's alone, a solitary figure moving through a landscape that forgives no mistakes. Her GPS, a personal purchase etched with months of study, guides her along dry riverbeds and goat paths she memorized in secret paths, invisible to the military's standard maps. The air is sharp, biting at her exposed skin, but Emma's focus is razor-edged, driven by the ticking clock. SEAL Team Alpha is out there walking into an ambush she alone believes is coming. Her father's words echo in her mind. Believe in yourself when the world doesn't. She was 16 when he said it, sitting by their Ohio fireplace, his voice heavy with the memory of a Vietnam squad mate lost to indecision. That lesson fuels her now, each step a defiance of the Tinkerbell label, of Captain Carter's dismissal, of a system that told her to stay in her lane. Emma grips her mother's necklace, its courage in silence. Inscription a quiet pulse against her chest. She thinks of her mom praying in Ohio, clutching a condolence letter that lies about her death. The thought stings, but it also sharpens her resolve. She's not just saving SEALs, she's proving she's alive in every sense. A sudden gust whips sand across her face, the first sign of a brewing storm. The desert comes alive, a howling beast of grit and wind, obscuring the stars and threatening to erase her path. Emma crouches behind a boulder, shielding her GPS as the sandstorm roars. Her heart races. She's mapped these trails, but a wrong turn now could mean death. Her fingers trace the screen, finding a narrow ravine she studied weeks ago, a shortcut to Sector Delta. She presses on her small frame, weaving through the storm boots, slipping on loose rock. It's a test of everything she's taught herself, a reminder of the high school friend she once helped through a bullying crisis, refusing to let him face it alone. That same instinct drives her. Now no one gets left behind. Then her radio crackles a faint signal cutting through the storm's static. It's Pashto, urgent and clipped from an enemy patrol. Emma freezes her breath, catching. They're returning to the ambush site, closer than she expected, their voices laced with suspicion. Check the pass. Make sure no one's coming. Her pulse spikes. This isn't part of the plan. She's miles from Horizon Base alone with no backup. But Emma's not just a radio tech. She's a strategist who's studied insurgent tactics. She switches her radio to a frequency she knows they monitor her voice, steady, as she mimics a coalition transmission. Horizon to Delta Patrol, we've secured Sector Delta. Stand by for reinforcement sweep. The lie is bold, her Pashto flawless, and the enemy chatter hesitates, then shifts footsteps, retreating. She's bought time, but her heart pounds with the risk. The storm eases, revealing the jagged outline of Sector Delta's pass. Emma's closer, now the weight of her mission heavier than her pack. She adjusts her radio tuning to SEAL Team Alpha's encrypted frequency. Vanguard to Neptune 1. I'm 2 clicks southeast of your position. What's your status? She uses the call sign Vanguard, a name chosen to mask her identity, knowing they'll question a lone rescuer. A voice crackles back, rough with pain and skepticism. Thupper Sergeant David Hayes. Who the hell is Vanguard? No one's authorized out here. Emma's prepared for this. Neptune 1. I've got intel on enemy positions at coordinates 342-568 moving west. Check your 6 for a 3-man patrol. There's a pause. Then Hayes' voice softens, wary but intrigued. How do you know that? Identify yourself. Emma takes a breath, her father's words steadying her. I'm someone who knows you're in trouble. I'm coming to you. Hold tight. She's not just convincing Hayes, she's convincing herself, pushing past the fear that she's overstepping, that she's too small for this. The radio crackles again, Hayes's tone shifting to grudging respect. All right, Vanguard. We're pinned down. Hayes, critical. Cole mobile but hit. Hurry! The urgency in his voice is a knife to her heart. She's their only chance. She thinks of her mother praying for a daughter she believes is gone, and her resolve hardens like steel. The desert tests her every step, the sandstorm's remnants, stinging her eyes. But Emma moves with purpose, her training a lifeline. She's not just navigating terrain, she's navigating doubt, hers and others. The SEALs are close their lives hanging on her ability to reach them before the enemy returns. Can she make it through this unforgiving desert with danger lurking in every shadow? The question burns, but Emma's answer is in her stride, each step a testament to a courage that refuses to break. The Yemen desert is a merciless expanse, its jagged ravines and rocky outcrops cloaked in the faint glow of a waning moon. Emma Larson moves through the shadows, her boots crunching softly on loose gravel, her pack digging into her shoulders. She's close now, the coordinates of SEAL Team Alpha's last transmission burning in her mind. The air is heavy with the threat of danger, every gust of wind carrying the echo of her father's words. Believe in yourself when the world doesn't. Her mother's necklace inscribed with courage and silence presses against her chest, a quiet anchor, as she nears the ravine where the SEALs are pinned down. She spots them in a narrow gash of earth, their forms slumped against a boulder. Thupper Sergeant David Hayes lies still, his chest stained dark with blood from a gunshot, wound his breathing shallow and ragged. Petty Officer Ethan Cole kneels beside him, shrapnel wounds tearing through his leg, his face etched with pain, but alert, his rifle trained on the darkness. Emma drops to her knees, her medical kit already open. "Vanguard," she whispers using her call sign. "I'm here." Cole's eyes narrow, suspicion warring with desperation. "You're the radio tech? This is crazy." But Emma's hands are steady, her self-taught medical skills kicking in as she assesses Hayes. She starts an IV, applies pressure bandages to his chest, and injects painkillers, her movements precise despite the chaos. As she works, Emma reveals the truth that's been burning inside her. 2 days ago, I was near an explosion in Sector Delta. She says, her voice low but firm. I picked up a signal, a coded transmission that didn't belong. It led me to a bomb before it detonated. That's why I'm alive. Cole stares, his grip on his rifle loosening. Command thinks you're dead. Why didn't you report? In Emma's eyes meet his unwavering. Because I knew they'd stop me from coming for you. I heard your distress call. I couldn't wait. The revelation lands like a shockwave. She survived by her wits, but chose the SEALs' lives over clearing her name. Her mother's grief in Ohio, her father's lessons of loyalty, all pushed her to this moment. Hayes's pulse is weak, his life slipping with every second. Emma crafts a makeshift harness from her tactical gear, slinging his 180-pound frame across her shoulders. Her small stature once mocked, as Tinkerbell becomes her strength, her low center of gravity steadying her under the load. Cole limps beside her, his shrapnel wounds slowing him, but his trust in her growing. They move out, following a path Emma mapped in secret, but the radio crackles with a new threat. Pashto voices, sharp and urgent, cut through the static, an enemy patrol circling back to the ambush site. Emma's heart lurches. They're too close, their footsteps echoing in the ravine. The only way out is a treacherous cliff face, its loose rocks and steep incline a death trap for the unprepared. Emma's months of self-taught climbing skills, practiced in the base gym under cover of night, are her only hope. She adjusts Hayes's weight, her harness distributing the load, and begins the ascent. Each step defies gravity, her boots gripping crumbling stone, her fingers finding holds where none seem to exist. A rock dislodges under her foot, skittering into the abyss, and for a heartbeat, She teeters on the edge, Hayes' weight pulling her back. "Don't you dare fall," Cole mutters, his voice strained but steady, anchoring her resolve. Emma shares a memory as they climb her voice, a lifeline in the dark. "My dad told me about a teammate in Vietnam, Private Daniels." She says, her breath ragged. "He was wounded, left behind in an ambush. Dad carried that regret until he died." "I won't let that happen to you." The words are for Hayes, for Cole, but also for herself, a vow she won't fail. Cole nods, his own pain forgotten in the face of her determination. "You're not what I expected, Vanguard," he says, a grudging respect in his tone. The cliff tests every ounce of her strength, her training, her will. But Emma pushes on, driven by the image of her mother, praying in Ohio for a daughter she thinks is gone. They reach a narrow ledge. The enemy voice is closer now, their flashlights flickering below. Emma's radio is her weapon, her Pashto fluency a shield. She sends another fake transmission, mimicking a coalition patrol horizon to Delta. "We're sweeping the pass. Clear the area." The patrol hesitates, then retreats, their lights fading. But the danger isn't over. Hayes' breathing grows fainter, his life hanging by a thread. Emma checks his pulse, her hands steady despite the fear clawing at her. "I won't fail you," she whispers, her vow, a prayer. The desert looms ahead, a gauntlet of sand and stone. Can she escape the enemy and get the SEALs to safety before time runs out? Her courage is her only answer, a fire that burns brighter than the darkness. The Yemen desert is a relentless adversary, its dunes and rocks stretching endlessly under a sky, bruised with the first hints of dawn. Emma Larson trudges forward, her small frame bearing the weight of Thupper Sergeant David Hayes, his 180-pound body slung across her shoulders in a makeshift harness. Blood seeps from his bandages, staining her uniform, but she doesn't falter. Beside her, Petty Officer Ethan Cole limps, his shrapnel-torn leg slowing his steps, his rifle still clutched tightly despite the pain. The air is sharp, the silence broken only by their ragged breaths and the crunch of sand beneath their boots. Emma's GPS glows faintly, guiding them toward Horizon Base, now just 5 kilometers away. But the desert isn't done testing her. A low, menacing roar shatters the quiet, a helicopter, its blades slicing through the pre-dawn sky. Emma's heart lurches as a spotlight sweeps across the dunes, its beam cutting dangerously close. She drops to a crouch, pulling Cole behind a jagged boulder, Hayes' weight nearly toppling her. The enemy chopper hovers, its light probing the darkness like a predator's eye. Her radio crackles, and a familiar voice in Pashto cuts through sharp, commanding the same one she heard in the ambush signals. It's not just any insurgent, it's someone who knows too much. Someone who might be connected to the base. The thought sends a chill down her spine, but there's no time to dwell on it. The spotlight grazes the boulder inches from their hiding spot, and Emma knows one wrong move could end them all. Her fingers fly to her radio, her Pashto fluency a weapon honed in secret. She switches to a frequency the insurgents monitor, her voice steady as she mimics a coalition officer, Horizon to Delta patrol sector secured. Reinforcements in position. Clear the area. The lie is audacious, her accent flawless, and she holds her breath as the chopper's roar hesitates. The spotlight swings away, the helicopter banking toward the horizon, convinced the pass is under friendly control. Emma exhales, her hands trembling, but her resolve unshaken. She's outsmarted them, but the danger lingers. The familiar voice on the radio hints at a deeper betrayal, a mystery she can't unravel now. Cole watches her, his eyes wide with a mix of pain and awe. "You're not just a radio tech, Larson," he says, his voice rough but steady. "You're a damn warrior." The word lands like a medal, marking the moment Emma sheds the Tinkerbell label for good. She meets his gaze, a faint smile breaking through her exhaustion. Just doing what needs to be done, she says, but inside her heart swells. She thinks of her mother, a nurse who spent years saving lives in quiet hospital wards, her voice echoing in Emma's mind. You can do anything if you believe. That belief carried her mother through long nights of triage, and now it carries Emma through this desert gauntlet. She adjusts Hayes's weight, checking his pulse, weak but steady. His life hangs by a thread, and every minute counts. The desert is unforgiving, the sand pulling at her boots, the cold seeping into her bones. Emma recalls a night in Ohio helping her mother care for a wounded veteran in their small-town hospital. The man, a friend of her father's, had whispered, "Every life is worth fighting for." That lesson drives her now, each step a fight for Hayes and Cole, for her mother's pride, for her father's legacy. The base is close, but the helicopter's threat lingers, its distant roar, a reminder that safety is not guaranteed. Emma's ingenuity has bought them time, but the desert is a maze of risks. Her GPS shows a final stretch of open terrain exposed and treacherous. Cole limps beside her, his strength fading, but his trust in her absolute. "How do you do it?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper. "Keep going like this." Emma glances at him, her breath visible in the cold air. "Because I know what it's like to be counted out," she says. "And I know what it's like to fight anyway." Her words resonate, a truth that speaks to anyone who's faced doubt and pushed through. Like so many who've stood against fear, Emma knows courage is moving forward when your heart trembles. The horizon glows faintly, the promise of safety tantalizingly close. But the desert holds its breath, and Emma's radio stays silent, the enemy's next move unknown. Can she lead Hayes and Cole to Horizon Base before the insurgents return, or Hayes's wounds claim him? The question burns, but Emma's answer is in her stride, her ingenuity a beacon in the dark, guiding them toward salvation. As the first rays of dawn break over the Yemen desert, painting the dunes in hues of gold and shadow, Emma Larson emerges from the haze, her small frame a stark silhouette against the rising sun. Thupper Sergeant David Hayes lies across her shoulders, his breathing shallow but steady, held secure by her makeshift harness. Petty Officer Ethan Cole limps beside her, his shrapnel-wounded leg dragging, but his eyes fixed on Horizon Base's gates, now just meters away. Emma's uniform is torn, caked with blood and sand, but her steps are resolute, each one a testament to a promise kept. The weight of her journey through storms, enemy patrols, and a treacherous cliff presses into her bones, but the sight of the base's guard towers ignites a spark of hope. The guards spot her first, their spotlights locking onto the impossible scene. "It's Larson," one shouts, his voice cracking over the radio. "She's got the seals." The words ripple through the base, a shockwave of disbelief and awe. Another guard, Corporal Jenkins, who'd let her pass hours ago, stammers. She was reported dead. "How the hell?" Emma's radio crackles as she calls in her voice, hoarse but firm. "Horizon, this is Vanguard. Returning with SEAL Team Alpha 1 Critical 1 mobile. Request immediate medical support." The response is a stunned pause, then a flurry of orders, medics to the gate. Now, the gates swing open and a crowd gathers their faces, a mix of confusion and wonder. Emma stumbles forward, her legs trembling under Hayes's weight, but she refuses to falter. She thinks of her mother in Ohio clutching a condolence letter, unaware her daughter is alive and rewriting history. She thinks of her father, who taught her to fix an old radio by their fireplace, saying everything can be mended if you're patient enough. That patience, that stubborn resolve has carried her through the desert to this moment. Medics rush forward, led by Captain Alvarez, who kneels beside Hayes, his hands swift as he checks vitals. "How did you get them here?" Alvarez asks, his voice laced with amazement. Ground routes were deemed impassable. Emma, helping transfer Hayes to a stretcher, replies I used paths I mapped myself. They weren't on your charts. Alvarez shakes his head awestruck as Cole adds, she carried him 5 clicks. She's a warrior. The base buzzes with whispers as Emma and Cole follow the medics to the medical bay. Soldiers pause their duties, staring at the woman they once called Tinkerbell, now a figure of legend, but the weight of her unauthorized mission looms. At noon, Emma stands in the debriefing room, her uniform still stained, facing Colonel William Grant, and a panel of officers, Captain Carter, Major Brooks, and Sergeant Mendez among them. The air is thick with tension, the room's stark walls amplifying the scrutiny. Grant's voice is measured, but stern. Specialist Larson, you left your post, defied orders, and conducted an unauthorized rescue. Explain yourself. Emma meets his gaze, her voice steady despite exhaustion. Sir, I intercepted signals confirming an ambush in Sector Delta. I reported it, but the system dismissed me. I survived an explosion 2 days ago by catching a bomb signal command. Thought I was dead. I didn't correct it because I knew you'd stop me from saving Alpha. I had the skills, the maps, the will. I couldn't let them die. Her words hang heavy, a mix of defiance and truth. Mendez nods subtly, her eyes proud, while Carter shifts uncomfortably, his earlier dismissal, now a shadow. Grant leans forward, his expression softening. Your intelligence was accurate, Larson. The ambush happened exactly as you predicted. You saved 2 lives when our resources couldn't. He pauses, his voice firm but warm. But you broke protocol. Military order exists for a reason. Emma nods unflinching. I understand, sir. But sometimes order fails the mission. I acted to save lives. The room is silent, the officers exchanging glances. Grant's decision will shape her future court-martial or commendation. Days later, Emma stands before a formation at Horizon Base, her new sergeant stripes gleaming on her uniform. Colonel Grant addresses the crowd, his voice carrying across the dusty parade ground. Sergeant Larson's actions proved that courage and skill know no rank or size. She's been promoted to lead a new tactical support unit, one that values diverse expertise. Because of her, we're rethinking how we identify talent. The crowd erupts in applause, soldiers who once overlooked her, now saluting her strength. Hayes, recovering in the medical bay, grips her hand, his voice rough. You didn't just save us, Larson. You showed us what a real warrior looks like. Cole, leaning on crutches, adds, you changed the game. Emma smiles, her heart full, imagining her mother's pride when she learns her daughter is alive, a hero. She thinks of her father, his lessons of patience and loyalty, now a legacy she's carried forward. Like so many who've been underestimated, Emma has proven that one person can change a system by daring to act. Her story isn't just a rescue, it's a revolution, a beacon for anyone who's been told they're not enough. The sun blazes over forward operating base Horizon, casting long shadows across the parade ground, where soldiers stand in formation, their eyes fixed on a woman who was once invisible to them. Emma Larson no longer. Tinkerbell stands tall in her crisp uniform, her new sergeant stripes gleaming. The desert air hums with anticipation as Colonel William Grant steps forward, his voice carrying the weight of a truth newly learned. Sergeant Larson's courage rewrote our understanding of strength, he declares. She saved 2 lives and showed us that talent can come from anywhere if we dare to see it. The crowd erupts in applause, a sea of salutes for the woman who defied death and doubt to bring SEAL Team Alpha home. Thupper Sergeant David Hayes, now recovering, stands at the edge of the formation, his chest bandaged, but his grip firm as he shakes Emma's hand. You didn't just save us, Larson, he says, his voice rough with gratitude. You redefined what a warrior is. Petty Officer Ethan Cole, leaning on crutches, nods his eyes bright. You changed the game for us, for this base, for everyone who's been underestimated. Their words are a crown, a recognition that Emma's actions reached beyond the desert, touching the core of what it means to serve. She smiles, her heart swelling, imagining her mother in Ohio, now holding a letter that tells the truth. Her daughter is alive, a hero. Emma's thoughts drift to her hometown, where the community rallied around her father after Vietnam, their support a lifeline through his darkest days. That memory of neighbors bringing casseroles and stories to their doorstep taught her the power of collective strength. She carried that lesson into the desert, and now it's her legacy, a new tactical support unit led by her, where skills like hers are no longer sidelined, but celebrated. The unit Grant announces will harness diverse expertise, a direct result of Emma's proof that courage transcends rank, size, or role. Soldiers who once mocked her now approach with respect, one whispering, "I called you Tinkerbell." I was wrong. His salute is a quiet apology, a shift in the base's culture. But there's one final thread to tie. During the ceremony, Emma steps to the podium, her voice steady. I heard a voice on the enemy radio, she says, her eyes scanning the crowd. It was familiar, too familiar, and I've reported it to intelligence. We may have a leak, but we'll find it together. The revelation stirs murmurs, closing the mystery of the Pashto voice that haunted her mission. It's a reminder that her vigilance, her unauthorized initiative, didn't just save lives, but exposed a deeper threat. The crowd's respect deepens their trust in her cemented. Emma's story is more than a rescue. It's a revolution. She thinks of her father, whose regret over a lost teammate shaped her resolve, and her mother, whose quiet strength as a nurse showed her that every life is worth fighting for. Sometimes Emma says, her voice clear, doing right means breaking rules. Believe in yourself, and you can change the world. Her words resonate, a beacon for anyone who's been told they're too small, too old, too anything to make a difference. Like those who faced doubt and pressed on Emma's, proven that courage has no limits, that one person's defiance can ripple through a system, rewriting its rules. This tale, like all great stories, weaves action, emotion, and a universal truth. As storytellers, we craft narratives like Emma's to remind us of the underdog's power, the magic of blending heart-pounding stakes with heartfelt resolve. Her journey shows that a single act of bravery can spark change, just as a single story can inspire a community. Her legacy lives in the soldiers who now train beyond their roles, in the officers who listen to unlikely voices, and in the unit she leads, where no talent goes unseen. If Emma's courage moves, you let it spark something in your own life. We've all faced moments where doubt loomed large, where we had to choose between safety and what's right. Share your story in the comments. Tell us about a time you defied the odds, just like Emma. Hit that like button if her journey inspires you, and pass it on to friends who need a reminder of their own strength. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of bravery that prove anyone can change the world, no matter how small they seem. Emma's story is yours too, a call to shine, to act, to believe.